This is episode 7 of Triple Cross Cinema. I'm Whooper, and here's Mario.
Hey everyone.
This is our last podcast for quite a while. Mario is actually going to be attending the Cannes Film Festival um, in about a week,
Yep.
so we won't be able to record together for maybe a month. Um, Kind of fitting that since we're doing a podcast about films as opposed to anime, which we typically talk about, one of us is actually going to perhaps the most prestigious film festival in the world. Um, Makes me feel like our podcast has sprouted a little branch on the tree of credibility. Like this, you can actually take what one of us says somewhat seriously, including about screwball comedy films, which is the topic of today's episode. We're going to be talking about three films from the
For
yeah,
these,
well, kind of the 40s. One from
yep,
1939, so they're all back to back to back. It's Bringing Up Baby, His Girl Friday, and The Lady Eve from between 1939 and
yep,
1941.
yep. And let me tell you that screwball comedy is like one of my favorite genre. It's just so fun to watch. I
And to
don't
listen
know
to.
if and to listen to. That's right. And I don't know if Whooper would share the same sentiment with me. Let's see. Let's find out.
Yeah. We'll find out. I'd say I enjoyed two of these films pretty well. I mean, all of them were all right, but
Yep,
I have a least favorite for sure.
yep,
And we'll discover what that one is, perhaps pretty quickly.
yep. So we will discuss them by release order. So the first one up on deck gonna be Bring Up Baby.
Right. Written and directed, I believe, by the same person who wrote and directed His Girl Friday.
That's
Oh,
right.
I'm sorry, I'm wrong. Howard Hawks did direct both, but he didn't write Bringing Up Baby.
Yep. That's true. Um, Howard Hawks, like many believe now that he's like a true champs. So like he wasn't really that big when he were active. He's only like not like um an A-list directors. But now, like he really get um, like supported by the critics,
Right.
especially by the new French New Wave critics.
Really?
Yep. So got that, and other directors really love him.
Why?
So they
Why, I wonder? Because like Bringing Up Baby, I thought the way it was shot was just pretty sterile.
um all right. I The reason why I think is they thought that they regard him as like the master of control of like an uncontrolled scenes.
He's the master of controlling uncontrolled scenes.
All right, he the master of control all the chaos.
Right. Don't you think that's more down to the screenplay than it is the director? I mean, obviously, when you're talking about a film, the director's hand is in everything, pretty much.
Yep. Hmm.
But I don't know. I mean, His Girl Friday, perhaps
Yep.
I can understand. That seemed like a big step forward. Not knowing
Hmm.
anything about the man or about his filmography, really, I've only seen these two films of his. But His Girl Friday, despite being only 1 year removed from Bringing Up Baby, seemed like a big step forward in terms of staging and framing.
Yep.
Whereas Bringing Up Baby, there were a lot of scenes in rooms that seemed very sparsely decorated and kind
Hmm.
of empty. And
Right. Hmm.
I mean, characters were walking in and out of rooms all the time. For
Yep.
example, David and Susan, always chasing George the dog around. But I don't know, it seemed like kind of circuitous, and I didn't really feel as though that there was a sense of space to the film most of the time.
Hmm. So this is the film that is your least favorite then.
Yeah,
All right.
and not just for that
Uh,
reason.
right. I all right, two things. First, I actually agree with you. This is out of the three films, this is like my least favorite as well. But I don't think the general public gonna think so because I think this is remain like the most popular films out of the three films that we talk.
Okay. But
So,
what do you think about it? I mean, forget them.
all right.
They're not going to the Cannes Film Festival. What what do you think?
That doesn't make my opinion sound more credible
Oh, I don't
by
know about
you.
that.
All right. What I think is there's a lot of I would say that the couples are my least favorite as well because usually for all the couples they are like fighting back and forth, they bouncing off each other well. This one is more like one of them getting dragged along by Susan, and
Right.
I don't think Susan is a well-written character.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. No,
I think.
I I think she if I met her in real life, she would be the most annoying person.
Well, that doesn't mean she's not a well-written character, but I'll break for
Uh,
a second and like agree with you completely. In fact, that was like my first major like note regarding the film was that wouldn't the film just have ended after like 10 or 15 minutes? He met the woman, obviously they have an unfortunate encounter, a series of them at the golf course because she
yep,
just goes on hitting his ball even after she's recognized that it's his. And then she gets into his car and drives it away,
yep,
um, even after discovering that it's not her car. So that happens. He can't really control any of that. Then when he sees her later at I think it's a hotel where he's
hmm
gone to meet the
maybe.
attorney for the woman who's
Oh, yep,
gifting the $1 million, I believe.
yep,
He sees her again. So this is the second encounter now, and it's perfectly within his power to just do a 180 and walk away. Like have nothing to do with her. Just cut the film here. It's over. Um, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me that he, you
would be
know,
dragging along.
yeah, that he would let himself be dragged along. And obviously, he's like a bit of a klutz and a bumbler, and he is just kind of like floating through life. And he's agreed to marry this woman, Alice, I think is her name, um,
Uh-huh.
who he doesn't really love, and she doesn't really love him. So he's just kind of getting by. He doesn't have a lot of
Yep.
direction or like will in his
hmm
life. But that I mean, you can still be that sort of person who's kind of passive and also like avoid conflict and harassment.
hmm
In fact, I think a person like that would probably want to avoid conflict and harassment more than anyone else.
Yep.
So I don't know. Like I thought her character was pretty pretty well written, I suppose, because
Uh-huh.
I mean she's like a kleptomaniac and
That's a good word.
I mean she is. She steals things. Like she steals a car just to avoid getting a parking ticket. Um when he's gone into the store, do you remember he goes into the store? They're on their way to meet her aunt.
Yep. hmm
And he goes into the store to get 30 pounds of raw meat.
Yep.
And
Yep.
while she's out there waiting, she drives off in someone else's car because she was going to get a parking ticket for hers. Um, so she's got all sorts of like personality disorders, I'm sure. And it's not as though there was a sensitive depiction of that sort of stuff, but it was entertaining enough.
Yep.
Um, I just kept thinking to myself, boy, like, why doesn't this guy just hightail it out of here?
All right. I think the second issue that I have with Bring It Up Baby, the movies, is that I just feel that some scene just dragging a lot. I don't know if you have that feeling, but like some scene, I think they just repeat the same joke a bit overly.
Oh, are you talking about like the wolf howling or
The
the
wolf
the
howling,
leopard the leopard call? Yeah.
yep, 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 and even like the jail scene later on, where where David had to like talk to the one of the guard, and it just keep going on and on and on and on. I
Um, are you talking
I
about
think
when
when he
Susan is talking to
tried,
the constable and she's like constantly tricking him into getting sidetracked?
yep, 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 and even before that, when David tried to like unsuccessfully trying to clear his name, and he doesn't really listen to what David said. Like the whole thing. I just think that when you think this is funny, you will get along with all that. But when you don't find it funny at first place, I think it's amusing, but like when it just keep repeating and repeating, it get a bit uh dragging at the end.
Yeah, you're referring to like the constable saying over and over, if one more person tries to tell me that she is this woman's niece, or that this woman is her aunt.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I s- I certainly gotten tired of the bit by the time it got to the end of its like repetition cycle, I guess.
Yep.
But
All right.
it's from how many years ago is this?
Yep.
39,
Yep. Yep.
61 plus. It was filmed 83 years ago.
Uh-huh.
So I'm willing to,
Yep.
I'm willing to give it a little bit of slack there. What's
All
funny
right.
to the average person in 1939 is probably not gonna cut it this far
Yeah,
into the
but
future.
all
I
right,
mean,
but
even the Lady Eve, like, uh,
correct. Yep.
you know,
Yep.
the guy falling
I
over all the time and spilling stuff on himself and all that. That's kind of the same thing. Like, it's the
mm,
same gag repeated um, 5, 8, 10 times.
yep. Yep. But by saying that, I actually feel that this show when they deliver the joke, they actually they have like the highest high for me. So there are like many scenes that like particular stuck in my mind. One of them is the gay scene.
Because
I
I'm
feel
gay.
yep. Oh
I've
my
gone
God, it just
gay.
it just so perfect, like perfectly capture my Cary Grant on that scenes.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of similarities, but even though he plays very different characters between this film, where he's
Yep,
just like a goofus, and His Girl Friday, where he's like a really quick-witted and sophisticated newspaper man.
yep,
There were a lot of similarities in his character, like specifically in the second half of Bringing Up Baby, when he started to lose his temper,
yep,
versus how he is in His Girl Friday, where he's kind of on the edge of being that way all the time.
hmm
Some little mannerisms, like where he would kind of huff, like, or stamp his foot or do stuff like that. Yeah, I got the sense that he just had like kind of a little bag of quirks that he would pull from for a lot of his characters.
All right, yep,
Um, it was pretty amusing.
yep. So that scene in particular is amusing, and the scene where they just walk straight to the lake. I love that. Like the first time I watched it, it just like I just laughed my belly out.
Where she says that it's shallow and they can just
Yep.
go right
And
across.
then
Yeah.
like the very next scenes, like they like even today they would like go slow. They would like set that up. But this is like they the moment he said like yeah it's shallow you can walk that. The very next scene they just like go shroom that to the leg.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. It's just the effect. So yes, I think it's
Highest highs,
delivered
huh? I mean, I
mm,
wouldn't say that.
right.
I'd say
Mm,
this film is pretty much a tier below the other two from start to finish.
all
Um,
right.
although I mean, that's not to take away from Katharine Hepburn's performance.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. Yep.
she's really good. It's a difficult character to play
I agree with you.
because she's most I
And
mean,
you
but the two of us had the reaction where you see that character on screen, you're like, no, I don't want to. No, no, no.
stick around with her.
Yeah.
Yep.
So people watching the film, some of them would watch and see a character like that and be like, I don't even want to stick around for the rest of this movie with this character. But I think she does a good job making her vulnerable in like key scenes. Because it's obvious that she falls in love with the guy almost immediately. Um,
Yep.
but it's obvious that she's not just like single-mindedly thinking only of herself. Well, yes, she is, but she there is some
Yep.
vulnerability to the role. Is what I'm trying to say. Like she's concerned about him and whether he likes her or not, and how she's coming off, and she
Yep.
recognizes that she can be difficult, and she wants to keep that to a minimum, but she has a hard time with it. So there is a bit of vulnerability, like a slight amount of depth to the
Yep.
character that she manages to bring out, I think, pretty skillfully.
yep, yep, yep. But I still admire the way that like the plot progress. So we have like a lot of absurdities, like the leopard, the baby, uh, the plot about he finding like the one missing bone.
Right.
Oh, I think like just talk about that the observe of his own that make me laugh already. So I think that the film is still refreshing in some way
I guess. Man, I don't know.
and
I'm having a hard time like really complimenting
relate.
this
Yeah.
movie. Like I don't know. It was all right, but
Hmm.
it never really captured me. I mean, the only moment of the film that really captured me was probably when Katharine Hepburn sees David with his glasses off, and she
Yeah.
remarks to him a couple times, "You're so good looking without your glasses." But the way, like the expression on her face and the way she says it, it's like he's poisoned her almost with
Was
how handsome he is, and she's like drunk on it. Um,
all right.
she and it's just like she kind of drawls the words out, you know.
Yep.
Uh, I can still like see and hear her saying that. That was the delivery, I guess, the particular dialogue and the particular delivery that left the biggest impact on me. I guess I'm just like a sucker.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep. So I think out of the three film, I think this is like your definitive term of screwball comedies. You have like Cary Grant playing the main characters, which he play as in a lot of this type of films.
yeah.
He's
Was he
he's like the
more a
biggest
comedic
star out
actor
of
than a?
screwball comedy.
He wasn't much of a dramatic actor then.
Yeah, 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 that's right. I think he appears sometime later on in Alfred Hitchcock, one of the thrillers.
Okay.
But before that, he is known mostly by like by playing that this role.
Okay.
And Howard Hawks, I think, is like one of the main characters out of this genre as well. So I think this is like the one that people talk about the most out of screwball comedy subgenre,
Well,
like in
I
the
is that
1940s.
because maybe it's not necessarily the best, but it's like the one that set the standard, or it's like the
Yeah, well,
template for screwball comedies.
yep, yep, would say so as well.
Huh.
But yeah,
Okay.
thing about it is there is a leopard on the loose. There is
Well,
a man,
there's multiple leopards. That's the thing, because it's
multiple leopards. Yeah, that's
the
right.
film's a farce. You know, there's constant
Yep,
mix-ups and
yep,
people assuming other like aliases and identities, and people stealing each other's cars and golf balls, and
yep,
uh, you know, there's that scene where he has to cover her butt with his hat because the tail of her gown has come undone, and
yep, yep,
it's all just a big farce. So you got to have more than one leopard. It's not enough to just have one leopard. You got to have a mix up between leopards.
yep, yep, yep.
So that's I mean that's respectable. You have to respect a film with more than one leopard in it. What do you
Yep.
think they were actual leopards, or do you think they were
Oh,
like
it's an actual leopard, yes,
yeah
but it's a tame one. That's what I heard. And the scene where the leopard and the dog playing to each other, I think that was real as well.
yeah, but it was an actual tame leopard, and I assume that the other one was perhaps the same leopard,
Yep, yep, the
and
same
they
one.
yeah, and they just had it growl because it was trained to do that.
Yep, yep, that's right.
Huh.
Ooh,
Yeah,
imagine
that's
that.
still spooky. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there an animal in all three of these films? Obviously, there was a snake in the Lady Eve.
Yeah, there isn't anything in his Girl Friday, I believe.
No,
Yeah,
I'm
as
thinking
far
about it. Yeah, I
yeah,
guess you're right. That film is a little bit more humanistic, I think, than the other two.
yep, yeah.
It deals more with like social issues and
It's still a
stuff like that.
fact.
Yeah, it's still a farce, but not so much as this film. I don't think. Like
Yep,
the fact that they have to sing The like the leopard really loves a particular song, so they have to sing it at various points throughout
Oh,
the film
yep,
in
yep,
order to get it to come to them, or
yep.
like it's incorporating elements of like I don't know. It feels almost like a play, like a stage
Hmm.
play, just
Hmm.
transmitted to the screen, and that's part of why this is probably my least favorite of the three. Is that it really does feel kind of like the actors are just bringing the script to life
Yep.
um, in front of a camera. It doesn't feel like I don't
The
know, like the
environment.
visual element is too much of a participant.
Yep, yep, yep.
Obviously,
I,
I really shouldn't be saying that because obviously it is, and the director and his cinematographer, and
I
I'm
yep.
sure they put a lot of thought into where to position the camera in each shot, and but it doesn't, it doesn't seem
It
to
doesn't
elevate the
stand
film
out. Yep,
for me.
yep. Well, I don't think it's a bad thing, like having like having all the technical things not stand out. But at the same time, I think I can see your concern there.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's fine. There are a lot of films being made now, in
Hmm.
2022 that despite more sophisticated cameras and lenses and just recording equipment in general, both for sound and picture, uh, you can still make a really bland looking film, even 83 years in the future.
Yep,
So it's not like that will kill a film just because it's a little older.
yep,
Obviously, it didn't kill this film because we're talking about it
yeah. I
so
just
far after the fact of its creation.
I just love the comment that her fiance that his fiance said.
What's that?
Uh, Now you showing your true color, and you are a I don't remember what animal that she said, but it's just so funny.
A baboon,
You are a
maybe?
cat, I think.
A
I know
cat?
it's some yeah, it's some kind of like a normal animals, and it was like now I'm a cat. Oh, I don't remember is that the cat or other animals, but it's just so funny.
That kind of reminds me of yeah, like him saying, "Oh, now I'm a cat." Like that kind of exasperated. Oh, now this is happening. Now I'm being dragged into this analogy, and now I'm this animal. Like because he's been
Yeah,
through so much crap throughout the course of the film, and now she's telling him that he's a cat or a dog or whatever. Oh, now
yeah.
I'm that. Great.
And then I actually like his characters. He looked real enough to me.
I kind of lost my patience with him a little bit.
Oh God.
Like, what stick up for yourself, my man. uh, or rather, stick up for yourself early enough in the film that it doesn't, things don't spiral out of control um,
Yep.
to this point.
Well,
Also thought the ending was a
uh,
little weird. Like
I think
because
that's yeah.
what's up?
Go on. I think it's perfect. That
You
ending
think the
is
ending is
perfect.
perfect? Really?
Yep. Yep. It
I mean,
is.
she comes to see him
Yep.
at the museum, and I mean that the room that they're in the museum is just like the most dull looking museum room in history. That's just a big room with a dinosaur thing in the middle of it, and pretty much nothing else in the entire room. Nothing on the walls, just a couple exhibits standing in the middle of the floor. Like that's the
Uh,
primary example in my head when I talk about sparse decoration
yep.
in
Yep.
this film. But the scene where Susan comes to the museum at the end and she's like, man, I don't even. I was so unconvinced by that final scene and their confession of love for one another
Uh,
um, that I hardly even remember the details of it. I mean, I remember her
uh,
swaying back and forth on the ladder and the whole
yep.
dinosaur collapses, hardy har har. But the details of their exchange, the way that they came to the realization, both of them, or the admission that they have both, fallen in love. Man,
Yep.
I don't know. I
It
was just like, well, okay, I guess it's the end of the film and it's time for the two main characters to say they love each other.
you
But
You know what? Actually, like despite it is my favorite genre. I think I have mentioned that too many times. I'm not gonna mention that again. I always feel like the endings of this film are the wicked past. So, like at the end of everything, they will get back together and they have a happy ending. And some of them, I'm not even convinced that, like they're gonna be happy afterwards.
Well,
or
most
you know,
people who
like
get together don't end up happy afterwards.
not the message that this film gonna send out,
Yeah.
do they? But and on top of that, I don't even think that like these characters are meant for each other. Like they are good fit for each other. I think I have that issue the most with the Lady Eve, but we will get to that later. And out of these three, I think this one end in the most convincing way for me,
Okay. Hmm.
because like in the end, it's still that she's the one who like who break down all the things that he had built
Yeah.
before that. And I think that it's just a step for him to like get, start a new life, so I think it's kind of appropriate,
I mean, it's
kind
certainly
of.
consistent because she wrecks his life, and then at the end she wrecks his dinosaur.
Yep.
Um, yeah. So props for that, I guess.
Well, yeah, I think watching Cary Grant in this film and in His Girl Friday, you totally see like two different characters, and at the same time, like you said, play kind of playing the same character as well. So
Just some
yeah, let's
similar
hop
elements in the performance. Yeah.
yeah, let's hop on to His Girl Friday then.
Okay.
It's I would say it's my top 10 favorite movies of all time, maybe top 5 as well.
Wow.
So yes, I watched this one I think the first time sometime 10 years ago, and I was just so impressed
Yeah.
with
I was
it. Yep.
impressed with this film as well.
Is it
Mostly
is it
Rosalind
is it the
Russell.
first film that you watched out of the three?
No, I saw them in chronological order, release order.
Oh, all right. All right. Yep.
Yeah, Rosalind Russell just knocked my socks off in this movie, man.
I agree with you completely, and even Cary Grant's characters knock my sock up as well.
Yeah, you
Walter.
know what? So there's a famous internet GIF where Cary
Yep.
Grant does the little hand motion where he says "Get out."
All right. Yep.
That for I never knew where that came from. Now I know. Now I know that's from
And
this movie where
yep.
he's like he does that kind of flamboyant like finger flick and says "Get out." Now I know where that's
Oh,
from.
yeah, I
That's
love the
great.
films. And yeah, some fun fact is that Quentin Tarantino is a fan of this film as well. And he didn't know about this film. Like I think he said in one of his interviews that he used to go to the cinema and watching like back to back movies, whatever play on the cinemas. And at one time he will fall asleep watching one movie, and then he wake up watching this one. And he watched it to the end, and he like was impressed by it as well. And it turned out that it's His Girl Friday, and it's become like his favorite movie ever since. One of his favorite movies. And I think the first part of Pulp Fiction, I think is mostly inspired by this.
I have seen Pulp Fiction, but it's been so long that I don't remember how it
It's
begins. It does it begin with John Travolta and
no.
Samuel L. Jackson?
It's begin with Honey Bun. I think her name is Honey Pumpkin. They the guy and the girl planning to drop a cafe.
Oh, is it Tim Roth in the diner?
Yep, yep. That's right.
Okay.
That's the one.
So is the dialogue between those two characters supposed to mirror or have been influenced by
Yep.
the meeting between the two main characters in this film in his office, Walter and Hildy?
I think it's more of the style, the way that they talking back to each other, and the way that they start from one thing and end up, like deciding to grow the cafe.
Okay.
It doesn't sound convincing.
I'm just tired because I
Yep.
was watching movies usually makes me sleepy.
All
That's
right.
kind of actually how I know. It's like a biological test
Yep.
that I can just give whenever I'm watching a movie. If if it doesn't make me sleepy, then I
Yep.
guess I, you know, film might be pretty good, or maybe I enjoyed it a little more than average.
Yep.
But I just watched The Lady Eve shortly before we began recording,
All
so
right, right.
it made me a little
Yep.
sleepy.
All
His
right.
Girl Friday though gives me life. Uh, Hildy is
Cool.
such an awesome character. Like in bringing up baby, um, obviously Susan is like an overpowering presence. She has
Yep.
all the cards in the relationship between herself and David. In this
Yep.
film, even though Walter is such a strong character, like a domineering character who will try to cheat people and employs like Louis and what is the other woman's name? The blonde
Oh.
woman. Like they multiple characters describe her as being really blonde. Oh, Evangeline.
Hmm. All
Her
right,
name's
right. Yeah, yep.
Evangeline. So he employs both of them, and he plans to double cross the mayor in one of the very first scenes in the entire, or the governor. He plans to double cross the governor
Uh-huh.
in one of the very first scenes in the entire movie. Anyway, what I'm driving is even though he's such a strong character, Hildy Johnson is every bit his equal.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
That's true.
you know, she's like smart as a whip, and she says what's on her mind.
Yep.
Um, obviously she still has a passion for being a newspaper man or news person,
Paper,
whatever term you want to
nip,
use.
newspaper woman.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think she refers to herself at one point as a newspaper man,
Yep.
because that would have been the term, I guess, back in 1940.
Mm.
But she's kind of lying to herself about whether or not she wants to continue in this line of work. Obviously, she still loves it, and when she says
Mhm.
that she wants to be a mother and a wife and settle down, that's not necessarily a lie, but
Yep.
she's not acknowledging how she feels about the job. So it's not as though she's entirely truthful, but it seems to me like she's true to herself, just in general.
Yep.
She talks about how the newspaper business is like inhuman and she just wants to get out of it. And that's probably true on some level.
Mhm.
She isn't afraid to like emasculate other men. I remember
Yep.
one of the first things she says when she comes into the reporter's room, like the bullpen, I guess you would call it, or maybe
Uh-huh.
something else. Um, she tells one of the reporters, "Oh, maybe we can use you for a bridesmaid." Like basically just calling him out saying you're not a real man. She can say stuff like that because
Yep.
she has earned the respect of the guys working in there. They all know her and like her.
Yep.
They think she's talented. That she has a gift. So she's just like a strong character. She's well written. She's got a real sense of power to her. And Rosalind Russell is the fastest talker in the history of cinema. I have
Yep.
to
Yep. Yep.
imagine.
Well, I actually need subtitle when I watch the movies because otherwise I couldn't catch all these, all the dialogue that they keep sprouting each other.
Yeah. The
All
the
right,
the peak of it, I think, is probably
the first the
when
first scenes.
she no, it's the one where she calls Walter on the telephone after Bruce, her fiance, has landed in jail
Yep.
for the first time, and he
Right.
realizes it was Walter who set it up. She calls him and like hurls insult after insult at him at like 95 miles an hour. And she's in the center of the frame, but you see all the other reporters around her in the periphery
Yep.
of the frame, all like kind of reacting to what she's saying, like shooting glances at each other,
Yep.
like amused by how vicious she's being. It was
Yep. Yep.
fabulous. Love that
Yep.
scene.
I I love every single scene of these movies. Um, I was about to arrive at something, but now I forgot. So keep going on.
Uh, I
Oh,
don't
right,
know.
right, right. I
Go
think I
ahead.
remember now. Howard Hawks. So this is another movie that directed by Howard Hawks, and
Right.
like I mentioned to you before, he been like highly regarded later on in his life, by many critics. But I just think I just don't get it. Like this one, even though it's one of my favorite movies, um, like I think originally the Rosalind
Russell.
Rousseau, she hated the characters and had to hire the writer, like her own writer, to write her dialogue again, and it worked. So it just feel to me that like the original screenplay, like the Hildy character is not as vicious and as smart uh, quip at this one at the one that we see here.
You mean Hawks? Oh, looks like he didn't write this. Actually,
No,
I thought he wrote and directed this one.
yeah, but I think he was about to go with the original screenplay until Russell doesn't like the characters and had to hire someone to rewrite on the dialogue, and I think they have to do it like like the day before, and then they shoot it or something
Okay.
like that. But it is something that not was not original on Howard Hawks' plan. But he go on with that, and I think that was a success because this is like just the way that Walter and Hildy just like all the scheme that Walter do in order to get Brooks and Hildy just like stay for a night, and then frame how he framed Brooks to
Right.
the jail.
Well,
It's
he
just another level of
yeah, of villainy. Yeah.
yeah.
So he gets him for having stolen a watch. That's the first one, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And then um, I guess hiring a prostitute would be for the second one. Evangeline was posing
Yep.
as a prostitute. He
Yep.
gets
Yep.
picked
Yep.
up
Yep.
for that. And then the third one would be the counterfeit money. That's the one that kind of sinks his relationship with Hildy permanently.
Yep. Yep.
Uh, um, yeah, he's a real slime ball, but
Yep. Yep.
you can't help but love him anyway because
Yeah, that's right.
he's got big ideas. He sees the potential in the situation that Hildy's gotten herself into
Yep.
with Earl Williams
Sorry.
in the desk. He realizes how they can leverage this to like oust the mayor and the sheriff and get like new leadership in whatever part of New York they're
Yep.
in. Because it's not New York City. Because there's a reference. This is a more political film than the other two by a
Yep.
wide margin.
Yep. Yep.
And there's commentary here about nepotism and bureaucracy and communism. Like
Yep.
this is before the second Red Scare, I think, because that was in the aftermath of the Second World War. But the guy Earl Williams, when he's questioned by Hildy the first time, and she's talking about production for use, and she kind of
Hmm.
uh, leads him into saying that that's what a gun is for, and that's why he used it the way that he did. Even though maybe we're meant to believe that he's innocent, I don't think we get a definitive
Yep.
pronouncement about
Yep.
that. But he,
And I do think. Yep. Sorry. Go on. Go on.
oh,
I thought you finished.
no, I'm gonna keep going on for a long time if you don't stop me. So,
No. No.
it,
Go. 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 Go on.
okay.
Go on.
uh,
Yep.
the like to I guess to drive at the heart of what the film is trying to say politically. This guy Earl Williams is basically being used. He's
Hmm.
whether or not he's innocent, whether or not he killed the African American policeman, which is what he's accused of doing. Uh, he he's innocent in the sense that everyone's trying to use him
Yep.
for their own gain. Like the mayor and the sheriff want to put him away as like running on the Law and Order ticket, I guess. Like, oh, we're
Yep.
gonna put this communist away because they're trying to paint him as having communist sympathies. Like he's in the park, he's hearing people make speeches, and maybe he's making a speech of his own. You hear the reporters talking about him that way at one point early on in the film. So they want to put him away to ensure their reelection. They want to make a public spectacle of it. Hang him from the gallows. I didn't know public executions were still a thing in the early 20th century in
1940s.
America.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but He's innocent in the
Yep.
sense that um, he's like the little guy, you know.
Yep. Yep.
He's
He's like a pawn. He's like
yeah.
yeah, everyone keep using him and sacrifice him for their
Even
own gain.
Walter and
Yep.
Hildy once Walter talks her into it. Um, so he's I think the overall point that the film is making politically is like uh, you can't you can't do this to people. Like you can't forget their humanity. Whether you be a politician, whether you be a newspaper man, whether you be working in any sort of system in any large or small city, you can't do this to a person. And it kind of makes the same point with Molly Malloy, the woman who took him in for a night, and then the newspapers made up a whole bunch of fabrications
Yep. Yep. Yep.
about her relationship with him. And Hildy does the same thing. She comments about how the newspaper game is inhuman, and even I guess it's important to point out the very first shot, quote unquote, shot in this film is uh, a, like a title card, or not a title card, but like a what do you call it? It's just a paragraph, and it
Hmm.
says this film is set in an era where to a newspaper man anything short of murder was okay as long as you got your story.
Yep. Yep.
Um, so I think the film is just discouraging that sort of behavior in general. Like uh, don't forget who you are and who other people are, and that everyone has the worth, the same value, and you shouldn't treat anyone as lesser or greater. Um, so there's my speech.
Yep. And I think those things that you said, and even like they critic about the newspaper, you know, things, they still relevant today. So that's I think that's something. And I also what I was about to mention that out of the three films that we watched, like the other two are I say more about class. So like there are rich people doing rich things, don't care about like other things. But this one is not. It's not about that at all. It's this one is more political. This one is
Hmm.
the two main characters are not rich, or they are not
Walter
wealthy
might
for sure.
be
Walter maybe, but like we don't know for sure. Like they that's never been a main point.
right.
Whereas like I think other film is they make it pretty clear that they are wealthy people doing crazy things.
Yeah, Susan's aunt is going to give $1 million to a museum, and
Yep,
in the Lady
yep,
Eve, obviously everyone is fabulously wealthy.
yep.
Henry Fonda's character is he comes from like how some people
A
are oil
brewery.
princes. He's an ale
Yeah,
prince.
yep.
Uh,
Oh, I love that bit. We will mention about that once we get to the Lady. Yeah. This one is, yeah, like you said, more about political and more about, like having that guy as a pawn where everyone could use them f for their own gain. And yeah, I think it's still basically I think relevant even
yeah,
by today's standard.
yeah. It's criticizing like political scapegoating, making someone out to be the villain just because they don't hold the same views as you.
Hmm. Hmm.
Political paranoia.
Hmm.
Uh, there's also there are multiple scenes where either the mayor or the sheriff will be in the reporter's room, and one of them will come in and give a quote from somebody who's critical of them. Um,
Hmm.
like one of the papermen comes in while the mayor's in the office, or maybe the mayor and the sheriff, and he says, "I just got a quote from the governor." Saying that it's a good thing that the election is coming up because the taxpayers will be able to spare themselves the expense of impeaching the mayor, and they can just vote him out instead. That they handled the situation like a couple of 8 year olds.
Yep. Yep.
So in that scene and in other scenes, it's obvious that the governor and the mayor are jockeying against each other politically. Um, I think the clearest example of that is when the mayor sends away Pettibone, the goofy guy who comes with the pardon
Yep. Yep.
for
Yep.
Earl Williams. And it's interesting. It's interesting that the person who serves justice in the film, the person by whose hand justice is ultimately served, is Pettibone, because
Yep.
Hildy and Walter have their backs up against the wall after having hidden Earl Williams in the desk for so long in the third act of the film, which all takes place in that one room.
Yep.
But Pettibone comes in and he's like, "Here's the pardon," and you tried to not blackmail me, but bribe me. You and I don't want to be a city sealer.
Yep.
So it's Pettibone, who's probably the film's least political character. He's kind of the most politically aloof. Like he doesn't even really catch on until later to the fact that the mayor was trying to bribe him. He's so thick, he doesn't get it. Um, Despite that, he's the hero that the film needs. Like in
Yep.
the protagonist's darkest hour, he saves them and he saves Earl Williams. Um,
Yep.
and because he's like the character who schemes the least. He's the
Yep.
character
Yep.
who is
I
like
agree.
the least deceptive and the most honest, even in his stupidity. So I think there's probably a message there as well. Like, don't
Yep. Yep.
uh, just live an honest life, you know?
Yep. Well, I love on the scheme. I love the bits where like Hildy, Walter, and Brooks having I think lunch at one of the diner, and whatever Walter said, Hildy just kick him his foot,
Right.
and we see that off screen. We just
Right.
see
Yeah.
like Walter just like saying stop.
Yes.
And until the third time where she actually kicked the waiter. Oh my God, that's so
Right. What makes that scene great is that you don't see her actually step on his foot. It's all
yeah, that's
delivered
right.
via, the characters' um, facial expressions and
Yep,
their line readings.
yep,
The fact that you have to
so
fill
good.
in that gap yourself makes it a little funnier because you can imagine the particular way in which he stomped on his foot yourself. It'll make
Yep,
it a little bit funnier for every individual person who imagines it a little differently.
yep,
That is
yep,
that is a really good scene because Carrie actually also in that scene, that is a great scene now that you bring it up.
yep,
There's
yep.
one of my favorite moments in the whole film is when you know how earlier I was talking about how Hildy is not afraid to like emasculate men, to humiliate them and make fun of them.
Yep.
There's a scene where they're talking about taking out the life insurance policy on Walter
Right,
because
right,
she
right.
wants the $1,000, and
Yep,
he's talking about well, I don't see how the physical wouldn't take more than just a few minutes. I'm fitter, I'm better than I've ever been. And she
yep.
says to him, "Oh, you were never much to begin with." The look on Cary Grant's face when she says that, like he gets this smirk on his face, like he can't believe she's just said this, and he's like delighted that she's delivered that line that way. And he turns towards the camera a little bit with that smile on his face. That's just an amazing
Yep,
moment in that
yep.
scene.
I agree. They just spark. Oh, one thing that I forgot to mention in the Bring It Up Baby is that I heard I think from some source that the shooting had been delayed for several times because Cary Grant and Hepper just keep laughing, so they have to stop the shooting. And I would say that the same thing here as well. Like everyone just having fun.
Yeah,
And I love all these, exchanges and all the reaction, like they have on their face.
yeah, yeah. They're I'm sure that they had a blast shooting it.
Yep,
The tempo of the film doesn't really give them time to react
yep,
to what the other one is saying because as soon as someone stops talking, someone starts immediately. But there are
yep,
scenes like that moment at the in the restaurant, or like the scene where Hildy is insulting him over the phone, and you get to see all the reporters around her,
yep,
kind of looking on in amusement. Uh, so you do get some reactions like that. Those become like precious moments in the
yep,
film because they're so few and far between. Most of the time, it's just talk, 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 talk.
yep.
But that's good too.
And more than any other of the three films, I think this one is actually based on the play. So there
Yeah, it
are
is.
Yeah, so I would say that the issue that you got on bringing up baby could apply here.
Well, I don't think so. No, because I was a lot more impressed with the staging of this film. Some of the
Hmm.
like for example, when there Molly Malloy has two really big scenes. The second one where when she hurls herself out of the window is obviously the the one that leaves a bigger impact perhaps because she tries to kill herself.
Yep, yep,
But the first one where she comes into the room and she's talking about how horrible all the newspaper men have been, that they've written these lies about her, even though she was just trying to be decent and bring Earl up to her room because he was cold. And
hmm,
as a for her kindness, she was punished by all these libelous
yep,
stories being written about her. After she says those things and she like essentially shames all of the reporters, she leaves the room, and they've been mocking her and calling her names and things. So she leaves the room, uh, and she's even more upset than when she came in. The aftermath of that scene is like a long take where you observe all of the newspaper guys either like sitting still, heads kind of downcast, a couple
uh,
of them like
yep,
shuffling around in the
yep,
room. Um, and the camera holds on them for a bit, and then Hildy comes in into the center of the room, and I love the way that that scene is blocked because when she opens the door, but she stands in the doorway, so she doesn't
hmm,
come into the room and join them
yep,
in
yep,
their like in this terrible thing that they've done. She doesn't come in and like kind of visually ally herself with them or join them in their predicament. Instead, she stands in the doorway, which is between where they are and where Molly has just gone. Like
yep,
she's kind of straddling those two worlds essentially in that scene by not coming into the room but also not backing out of it.
yep.
So I think that was a very thoughtfully composed
Frame.
scene.
Yep.
And there were other examples as well. I mean, that's the one that's coming to mind right now. But
Hmm.
yeah, I think that the film did a better job. I also think the film had more to say in general. So when a
Yep,
film has more
yep,
to say, it's less about gags and it has a little bit of bite to it.
yep.
Um, then it's maybe a little bit easier for a cinematographer or a director to explore
Implement.
what's underpinning the scene and figure out a
Yep,
way to make it translate
yep.
visually. I think
Hmm.
this film did a better job of that.
Yep, yep. I agree. And I think even to this day, I just feel that the characters Walter and Hildy are like upboard for each other. They just snapping each other head and they just I think they deserve each other.
Well, that kind of brings us to the ending because you were talking
Yep,
about the endings of screwball comedy films often involving, the two main characters. Just they have to be
yep,
together in the end, and they,
yep,
they get a happy ending. In this
yep.
film, they do end up together, and it's probably what Hildy wanted all along,
Hmm.
secretly,
Yep,
like deep down. But I don't know. It's really not what's good for her, because
yep. It is not,
yeah,
but
she's like, oh, let's go to Niagara Falls. We're gonna do 2 whole weeks. And he's like, great, let's do it. And then they get a call about a strike that's happening in Albany. So instead,
yep,
they're gonna go to Albany for their honeymoon, and they're gonna work while
yep.
they're, it's like they don't get a honeymoon essentially all over again because that was the case the first time they were married. So I wouldn't call it a happy ending, really. As with bringing up baby, it fits the what goes on in the rest of the movie. It fits the um, what's the word I'm looking for? The dynamic between Walter and Hildy's characters. Um, but it's not happy. I wasn't happy
Yep.
with it at least. I was like, no,
Yep.
don't do this.
Well, yep. I yeah. Yeah, I just feel bad for her for Hildy for going back with Walter basically. But I just still feel that they deserve each other. And bring to my point that I think uh one of the things that I love most about these three films is the way that they drive the female characters who basically drive the movie. and write the plot, pursue other male character to go along with them, or in this case, like stand on the completely, like equal level with the male characters. I don't think that's like even to today, some of these female characters are not that well written compared to like what we got back in the 80s, 40s, sorry, back in the 40s, 80s plus year ago.
Right. Well, in all three of these films, in His Girl Friday, Hildy is Walter's equal, and
Yep.
in the other two films, Bringing Up Baby and The Lady Eve, the woman is, uh, you know, the
The
more
driving
dominant.
force.
Yeah, she's the more
Yep.
dominant character compared to the man.
Yep.
And I
And
think that was, I mean, even though that was, perhaps a less friendly time for women.
yep.
Uh, I think there was probably a fascination on the part of a lot of male writers
Uh-huh.
with trying to put on screen like the image of a woman who uh, I don't know, seemed to have this like I don't know the best way to phrase it really, like trying to put on a woman on screen who's like sort of an ideal,
Mm-hmm.
who has brains and beauty and uh, vulnerability and just whatever else that they think of as a particularly
Yep.
feminine virtue, or even to give them like particular masculine qualities that they would want to see in a woman. You get the sense a little bit, or maybe this is just me being like way too projecting my
Critical.
80, yeah, too critical, like projecting my 80 years of foresight
Yep.
or
Yep.
post sight, whatever the term would be. uh, yeah, I'm probably looking into a little bit too much, but it does seem when you watch some of these films like that the female characters are kind of hyper written, like the writing
Yep.
process used to arrive at them is like a little bit too
They
heightened,
yeah,
too ideal.
they process like all the great qualities. You,
Yeah,
they're beautiful, they're attractive, they smart.
yeah,
Yep. I think I understand what you mean, but it doesn't make them less appealing, I think.
yeah.
Maybe not as realistic, but they are really a treat to watch.
Yeah, I agree. I just think that like if you ask a film critic or a film theorist
Yep.
uh, about this era, they might say that the fact that they are so appealing to watch is kind of the problem. Like they would call it kind of problematic that they're written
Mm,
this way. Um,
right.
I don't know because it's like it's so clearly a
Yeah.
male invention.
Yep.
Um, I don't really like the fact that that's where my mind goes, because I know it makes me sound you know,
Oh.
like somebody who's not really fun to be around. But I know that that's the
Yep.
sort of discourse that surrounds film now. That's the sort of thing that gets talked about, and it occurs to me too watching films like this.
I think you did make sense. I can see your point.
Yeah, I still
Um.
love Hildy though. I mean,
Yep.
whether she was written by a man or a woman or whatever, I mean, she's a
Yep.
fantastic character. I mean, especially Hildy.
Hmm.
Um, she's fantastic, man.
Yep. Yep. I agree.
I have to imagine that at this point in 1940, she had to have been one of the greatest female characters ever written for a film. Maybe she still is.
Maybe she still is. I agree with you on that. And yeah, I think one of the point that I want to bring up as well is watching this or just discussing this one and bring up maybe back to back. I think we have like a two, like two subgenre of this subgenre. So one of them is more rely on pratfall comedies, which we will see later on in the Lady Eve. This one they don't have any like pratfall, like people fall on their feet or something, just randomly drop on their head.
Yeah.
But it is like a kind of what they call a comedy of remarriage. So like two main characters who already divorced, they find each other, like each other charms again, and they decide to get married again.
You know, you
There's
could even say that the Lady Eve is kind of a comedy of remarriage because of the
I
way that the
That makes
characters
sense.
meet and
Yep,
then they end
yep,
up coming back together after meeting each other under completely different personas, which would be
that's
the time
right.
that they spend apart from one another in a sense.
Yep, yep. That make a lot of sense. Yes, and there are some other films that we didn't get the chance to watch this time, but also reinforce that is the Awful Truth and the Philadelphia Story. So yeah, there's a lot of good charms in this era for me.
Are these also comedies of remarriage?
Yes, yep, yep, yep.
Well, I guess at this point,
You're done with
marriage,
that.
I mean, marriage
Oh.
is still a huge uh, institution, worldwide.
Hmm.
But
Mm.
80 years ago, it was way, 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 way more important.
Yep,
Um,
yep,
so you got to figure that there are going to be people who, in their attempt to make marriage the most important thing in the entire world, they're going to be comedies of remarriage. Because if
yep,
people were married, well, you by jingo, you just got to jump in Jehoshaphat. You just got to continue on with that marriage because that's the way it's got to be.
yep. That's true.
Jump in Jehoshaphat. All the different, like all the lingo that they use, especially in His Girl Friday. I feel like Walters uses a lot of it.
Yep.
Um, because they can't swear. So they had to they had to invent all these ridiculous phrases, or perhaps the ridiculous phrases were invented in real life and they just borrow them for the screen. Uh, they always make me
Yeah,
kind of chuckle because they're such products of the era
yeah,
in which they were used.
yeah. It definitely
Nowadays you
it
just use a bunch of four-letter words.
Yep, and it definitely like sometimes that you don't see this day anymore, and like it. I think it's just much more fun that they say that roundabout way instead of like using that four-letter word, which is pretty boring.
I don't agree. I mean, think you
You don't
mentioned
agree?
Tarantino. You mentioned Tarantino before. Think about how creatively he
Yep,
uses
yep.
expletives. You just have
That's
to
right.
you just have to accept that. Well, you don't have to accept. You can choose how to write your film and what to believe about dialogue and what kind of dialogue to write. But if you
Yep,
accept as a basis that people do swear that way, you can write creatively around it, like a Tarantino script does,
yep.
or plenty of other scripts. I assume. But
Yep, agree.
it is at the same time it is fun to watch these old films and listen to all the ridiculous I don't know what you would call them, epithets or
Yep,
exclamations that people say in order to
yep.
get around the no swearing rule.
I hope that when in the future when we make like a ranking of the tiers out of these films, I really hope that this is one gonna be one of the top.
Well, it's certainly my favorite of these three films, and I mean, I did like the film a lot, but mostly my takeaway is that Rosalind Russell is amazing. That's
Hmm.
my main takeaway from this movie.
Yep,
She's amazing in the film. The film is amazing around her. Hildy's just a great character in general.
yep,
And you also have to love the casual racism of of
yep,
Walter, sending Louis out to find a bunch of guys, like pick up guys off the street and get them in here to move this desk out of this
yep.
building. And as soon as Louis like, "You got it, boss," he walks out the door. Walter shuts the door, and as soon as the door is shut, he turns around and says, "That dumb immigrant will flop on me as sure as you're born." It's just
Yep.
so transparently
I
racist.
Yeah,
Uh,
I would say that like a lot of people will get offensive based on like what this remark, but
yeah,
it's a
I mean,
fact.
it it made me laugh when he said it. But obviously, an immigrant listening to someone saying that is going to feel completely differently. That's not going to be funny to them, or at least not
Yep.
on average. But at the same time, it also says something about Walter's character. Like the film does not always look kindly on the sorts of things that Walter says and does. He's obviously a heel. You know,
Hmm.
he's scheming to drive Hildy and Bruce apart. He's willing to double cross anybody if he can get the story that he wants. You know, so the fact that he says something like that is not, you know, an indictment of the film itself. It's just I
Yep.
listening to old people and in bringing up Baby as well. There's the scene where after David has had his first encounter with Susan,
Yep.
he's in his apartment on the phone with Alice, and because he's so flustered by what Susan did the other day, he says, "Now listen, Alice. There's one thing we got to get straight before we get married. I don't want any woman dictating my affairs to me." And the
Yep.
delivery man who's come in to deliver him the package, the bone in
Yep.
that
Yep. Yep.
that rectangular box, he's listening to him say this to his fiancee, and he like nods approvingly, and he says, "That's the stuff, buddy." I don't. It's it really shouldn't make me laugh to hear people talking so poorly about immigrants or implying that women should just listen to their husbands. Damn it. But it does. It just makes me laugh.
Yep. Oh God. Oh, our taste.
Yeah.
We-
It's got well, especially because I haven't seen a lot of these older films, so it's relatively new to me.
Yep.
Um, so it's that much funnier.
Yep. All right. You got any other note for his Girl Friday, or otherwise we could go on to the Lady Eve.
If I'm gonna say anything else about it, it's gonna be more about like what the film has to say socially and politically.
Hmm.
So no, not really, because I already kind of talked in circles about that for a little bit.
All right. All right. So moving on to the Lady Eve,
Right. This
written
one I
and
didn't take any notes on this one because I just finished watching it.
yep. It's written and directed by Preston Sturges. Is it how to spell that?
Yeah, I think you would say that pronounce that Sturges. Yeah.
All right. Like I did mention to you that I didn't really like Howard's style of directing and stuff, but Preston Sturges, I just love his screenplay. I just love the dialogue of his films. Um, he's one of my favorite directors, maybe of all time. The way that I think he less of a director, of a visionary more than the guy who just write great dialogues. And I think he certainly did in The Lady Eve.
Yeah, I suppose so.
All
I
right.
mean, I just watched this movie and I'm already starting to forget it.
All right, cool.
Uh, I mean, I remember the general plot. He comes back from where was he? The Amazon.
The Amazon, he
Yeah,
mentioned that
he comes
a
back
few
from the
times.
Amazon and he meets this woman and they fall in love and then he gets the
Yep,
photograph and yeah, I remember the story and
yep.
I don't like watching this movie. I was kind of taken out of a lot of scenes by Henry Fonda's performance as just an idiot,
Well,
just a
um,
big dumb idiot.
I agree with you on that, but on this 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 rewatch, I actually found that it's Henry Fonda played perfectly. Like he couldn't play it any other ways.
You think
And
so?
yeah, and the way yeah, I think so. I I just think that like he could see everything, especially if you see the Henry Fonda in other films like 12 Angry Men, or like
I love 12 Angry Men so
yep,
much.
yep.
Yeah.
He's play a completely different character, and the way he hold it to himself. By that I mean like a scene where he's and Eve, I what's her name before that, Jean.
Her name's Jean,
When
yeah.
yeah, when they are in the room, and then he like he was affected by like I think he was he arose by her perfume, but he had to hold it. He had to like sort of behave,
Yeah.
and that make his face feel really awkward, and we can see
Yes.
that.
Awkward,
I think
yes.
he played that really well.
I just felt awkward watching him be awkward. Like this, the first scene, yeah, he comes into the room with her because she sticks
Of
out
the
her
shoes.
leg,
Yep.
he trips, and her heel breaks.
Oh God, I love that
So
scene. I Yep.
she
Go on.
schemes immediately to get him to come to her hotel room
Yep.
because he has to accompany her so she can get new shoes for whatever reason. Oh, it just occurred to me that both in this film and in Bringing Up Baby, there's a scene where a woman's heel breaks, and when they
Yep.
walk, you see that they go up, down, up, down, up, down.
I think
Only,
it's funny to watch.
yeah, um,
Yep. Yep.
Katharine Hepburn had a lot more fun with that concept. In fact, I think she literally said as she was walking, up, down, up, down, up, down. Um,
So silly.
Whereas in this film, Barbara Stanwyck is just like way more, she just uses it as an excuse to get a guy to follow her to her hotel room.
Yep.
She's like
But
all charm all the time.
yeah, but the setup of that, you see her, like narrating all these, like all the girls' tactic to get into this guy attention
Yeah.
or failed. And what she did is just, like just pull her leg out so that he fall down and like get him uh to go back to her room to replace the new shoe. So she go in a more direct and forceful way to get his
Yes.
attention.
Yeah. And boy, does it ever work.
Yep.
Because he goes into the room, her perfume is overpowering, and he's like, "Oh, I love it."
Yep.
Then he has to
Uh,
put the shoes on
for
her feet, and he's like
Yep.
looking up at her like he's got a bowling ball in his throat,
Yep.
and he's
Yep.
like choking on it. His eyes are as big as plates.
Yep.
And then there's the scene where the two, like she's lounging on the chair after he's been bumped off and is sitting next to her on the floor, and
Uh-huh.
she's like running her fingers through his hair,
Yep. Yep.
and
Yep.
he's like trying not to come in his pants, I guess, based on the look on his face. And then she says, "Oh well, time for bed," and he's like, "Oh man,"
Yeah, that was the
he makes some
funniest.
kind of comment to her about, yeah, like
Yep.
I wish that I could say the same.
Yep.
After she says something about, well, it's been a good night or something along those
Yep.
lines. But he's just like so, he's under her spell to such a degree that he really isn't bringing a lot to the table, um,
I
even
I
as
agree
a
with you.
character in the
I
film.
agree. I agree. Yes.
This is basically
I just feel
Barbara
that
Stanwyck's film, and he is just an oaf who exists to be the object of her affections.
that is right. I never at one point in this movie feel that, like he up to her standard.
Yeah, I think that sucks. I don't really
I think that
enjoy that.
sucks.
I mean, I don't really enjoy watching that.
All right. I uh to the L speech. Remember, like I said, he mentioned that he in the L business.
Yeah,
And they I think they will been asking about what the difference between ale and beer, and he said like one where's the bubble come on top, and one is the bubble come like at the bottom.
yeah. He's talking about fermentation.
Yeah, and as soon as he said that, he said like on the other way around.
Yeah,
So it's a bit that he have no idea about that either.
yeah. Well, he's like a big geek, He's his character in this film and Cary Grant's character in Bringing Up Baby are kind of similar. They're
Yep,
both
yep.
like academics,
Well,
researchers, and they're both clumsy and they both fall down a lot.
yep, yep. But I think the main point in that speech is that he even doesn't know what the difference between ale and beer. Like he can tell one from the
Yeah,
others.
yeah,
He can tell, but he doesn't know which one, like go on top and the ones go on the bottom.
yeah.
Y-
He's just
so
an idiot.
yeah, that's so amusing about that. Oh my God, I love
Uh,
it. I
I don't think we watched this film the same way. I
love
was not amused by that. I mean, I
it.
certainly I understand the purpose of it, and it even goes beyond that to kind of set you up to expect what kind of character his father will be, like because
Yep.
he's
Oh,
he's referred to as kind of being disapproving.
yep.
and then we eventually see that happen when we in the third act when we meet his father.
Yep. I feel that Gene co-workers. I can recall his name at the moment. I think Charles. Oh,
Who?
Colonel Harrington.
Colonel Harrington.
Yep.
Yeah,
And and Charles brother sorry, and Charles' fathers. I think they steal the scene every time. I think
yeah.
they
They.
took.
I mean, they're pretty amusing characters.
Yep.
I I guess. Uh,
You don't sound convinced
Man, I mean,
anymore.
thinking more. I think I enjoyed the film while I was watching it, but thinking more about it now, I really hadn't
Yep.
time to process it and just sit and jot down my thoughts like I usually do after I watch a film for one of these recordings. Uh, Thinking about it,
Yep.
I didn't. I mean, I think the film's pretty well made, um,
Yep.
and Barbara
I
Stanwyck is absolutely beautiful, and
Yep.
that that might be all I got. Oh, also the scene where um once we've gotten off the boat, and Henry Fonda's character Hopsy, is that what we're supposed to call him, or Charles, when he's home,
Hopsy, yeah.
and there's like a string of occurrences in the
Uh-huh.
morning, like the morning of a particular party they're gonna throw or something.
Yep. 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 Yep.
Uh, like there's I have it here. I took a bunch of screen caps. Okay, yeah. So first there's the cake decorator who
Uh-huh.
accidentally squirts the butler with frosting. Then we
Yep.
got then we have the colonel sitting outside at the breakfast table, and the guy's coming by carrying two potted plants, and he gets smacked in the face with them multiple times.
Hmm.
Then we have the butler with the snake curled around his ankle, after he said that it's his great fortune not to know where the snake is.
Yep.
Um, and then to cap that scene, we have the colonel banging the lids of two of his dishes on the
Yep.
table because he doesn't have his breakfast. Like that particular string of occurrences seems
Yep.
to me to be like kind of
Random.
mocking the upper class.
Yep. Yep.
Like
Hmm.
it's just a big farce essentially.
Yep. Yep.
What's going on here? It's the super rich acting like spoiled children and having no idea what the hell is going on.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
Yep. I think.
that amused me,
Yep.
but man, I don't know.
All right.
Not
I
totally
tell you the scene
convinced
that
by the
I
film.
really. All right. I tell you the scene that I love. I think I enjoy the most out of these films.
All right,
It's the confession of Lady Eve to that Henry Fonda characters.
confession of
Uh,
what? Because there's she has to confess a lot of stuff.
right. Yep. That a lot of stuff. So she confessed her love affairs that she eloped with a guy named something.
Wait a
Eh,
minute, that's your favorite part of this movie?
It is. It is. I tell
Whoa.
you why.
Okay.
I tell
Sure.
you why because we actually don't hear like we first hear like the full story of the first guy that she said, and we see that how Charles just like struggled with that, and he tried to possess that, and he like, tried to become a better man by forgive her, and
Yeah.
then she just like keep plowing that hole. But that also that intersection scenes of like the of the
The
railways of
exterior of the train and the
yeah
rain
of the
and
train in the
yeah.
rain, like in the like there was thunderstorm, there was a heavy rain, and it's keep going into the tunnel. I think the intersection there that make that make the whole thing great.
Man.
And later on, we don't even see like we see just bit of the dialogues. So
Right. And she
and
just keeps
if
saying names and he's like, "Who?"
yep.
And she's like, "Oh no, they were both his cousin."
Yep. And even to the last scene where we don't even see them talk anymore, but they just uh she just opened the windows, the plate, and then shut it off.
Yeah.
There is a progression there, and I love the way that it's play all out, like kind of seriously in order to highlight the facts, the all the absurdity of it all because
What element of that scene was serious? Why you said it
the
plays out somewhat seriously to
all
highlight
right,
how absurd it is.
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
can't identify even one thing that is even slightly serious about that
all
entire
right.
sequence.
The first thing is Henry Fonda characters, the way he act is he played a straight man and he was, serious on that.
How is Henry Fonda the straight man? He's a snake obsessed weirdo who can't stay on 2 feet for more than 5 minutes without falling on his face. How is he a straight man in any sense of the word?
Or in that scene, he's like a sensible person who tried to possess uh, his fiancée fidelity. So yes,
Uh, all right.
yeah, and second thing is they make the weather like everything so dramatic, everything goes so dramatic just to heighten the fact that like it's all the joke. I
Yeah.
yeah,
I
I love that.
all right. I
It's
didn't
work for me.
that to me the ending of this film is the worst part. That
All
scene
right,
included.
all right.
Because it feels like the film is rushing to get there.
Rushing,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. Um, the whole thing, like they have to be broken up. Like as you said earlier, these films tend to end with happy endings and the main couple being together. So they have to be broken up as
Hmm.
as Eve and Charles, so they can be reunited as Jean and Charles. So it
Yep.
just kind of felt like the film was hurrying along. In my opinion, it felt like the film was hurrying along their breakup. Like the dissolution of this new marriage,
Hmm.
so that
Yep.
they could both get on the boat again and find each other again and have a happy romantic ending.
Yep.
And all the cutaways to the exterior of the train just felt to me like abbreviating the scene for the sake of the film not being too long. That's how I
All
felt
right.
about it.
All right.
Like, oh, we don't need to let this whole scene play out. Uh, we'll just cut
Is
back and forth.
Yeah, is it make it funnier? Because it is for me.
No, I didn't find that funny at
No.
all. In fact, I found it a little weird
Mm.
because the joke of the scene is that like she is so she's been so unfaithful and she's had so many men
Yep.
before uh, Charles, and he's like, "Oh man, this really sucks that my bride to be has been with so many other guys other than me." It just
Yep.
it seemed pretty
Oh,
1940s conservative.
yeah,
Uh,
man, this guy a piece of work.
I mean, I'm sure that sort of reaction was probably normal for back then because you
Yeah.
wanted or
Yep.
hoped that your bride was going to be a virgin. I guess.
I just remember the way he said, I assume that they the police caught you guys before the nightfall.
Right. Yeah, and it's obvious what the subtext is there.
Yep.
Yeah, hearing that's not really comedy to me. Like, I just that kind of like weirds me out.
Yep.
Um, so that was part of the reason why I didn't enjoy the scene very much. But in
Yep.
addition, I didn't really like the cutting between the interior and the exterior.
Uh,
Uh,
I
I
I think
didn't.
that's the bad fact.
Yeah, well, maybe it is.
Yep.
I just didn't. I didn't like it very much. I guess. Um, but I mean, it's not as though the film ever really lost me. Because I could just look at Barbara Stanwyck for an hour and 40 minutes, and that'd be a
Yep.
great movie. Uh,
Uh,
in my mind.
do do you compare her role here as her role in the movie that we watched before, the Double Indemnity?
Dude, I didn't even realize I was the same person.
They are
Oh
the same
shit.
actress. All right. Yes.
Well, no, I didn't make that connection at all.
All right. Because yeah, they kind of like the same kind of characters, but this one
Sort
is
of, yeah.
more sort of, yeah. But
Yeah.
this one is less vicious than than the other one.
They're both kind of femme fatale sort of characters, as much
Yep.
as the female character in a screwball comedy can be a femme fatale. I mean, she is, like a con artist, um, and she intends at first to just string the guy along, and kind of cozy up to him so his defenses will be lowered so they can take him for more money. But then she
Hmm.
actually falls in love with him. And I wasn't terribly convinced that she could actually fall in
Love
love
the
with the
guys.
guy. Yeah. I mean, the thing he said, especially because so the thing he says at first, like, I've loved you all my life, that's a line that guys like to use. Like, I've never loved anyone except for you. So it's really been you
Yep.
that I've loved my whole life. I've just been waiting to meet you, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
And he brings out the line about like, I kind of see us, like I can see into the past and the future. And I see a boy and a girl holding hands in the past. And I see me with, you with crow's feet, me with calves feet, something along those lines.
Hmm.
In the future, that's obvious. Obviously, that's them having grown old together. The fact that he brings out the exact same line during the proposal when he is under the assumption that she's Eve
Yep.
is really lame.
Yep.
Uh, and I mean, it's not even like, I'll be completely honest. I would probably do that. You come up with like a really poetic sounding line like that, you may be reusing it at various points throughout your life. It's
Yep.
not as though you're an actual poet and you're going to be generating like spontaneous verses for every single person you ever find yourself being attracted to. But it doesn't feel good to hear him say the same thing, uh, once for Jean and once for Eve.
Yep.
In fact, the proposal scene in general, the way they cut into it was rather odd because I think she's talking to Alfred, or the guy who's
Yep.
pretending to be
Yep.
Sir Alfred McGlennon Keith. She's talking to
Yep.
him and she's kind of outlining how her relationship as Eve will go with
And then he.
Charles. And then
Yep.
as she's describing it, it cuts straight into the scene where he proposes. Kind of felt like the film glossed over some stuff there.
Yeah.
Again, for the sake of length.
I would say that it's intentional that they gloss over this detail because I would say that Jean and Charles they play more like like in real life, so the pace is much slower than if who's supposed to be like a fake and try to so it is all the scheme with if, so I think that kind of makes sense that they would kind of speed up the uh the progress a little bit there.
Well,
You
just the
I
fact
think you
that
know what I mean.
it comes so close to the end of the film.
Yep.
Like that seems to be where a lot of the speeding up of the script happens, is towards the end. Like they kind of front loaded the movie and they got to the end, and that's where you kind of have to leap along with the film as it kind of skips over some stuff.
Yep.
I wasn't satisfied by that.
Yep. There are two more things that I want to say about these movies. Let's see.
All
The
right,
first thing is the ending. I think this is the ending that ring falls for me the most out of the three films
and why is that?
because they get the happy ending, and in the end, we still get the sense that this guy doesn't change. He doesn't learn his lesson.
What lesson
Like
should he have
he
learned?
didn't even uh well, it's exactly he doesn't need to learn any lesson, but he doesn't even realize that Jean and Eve are were one and the same. So what happened if he find out in the future? He gonna still love her for that, or he gonna like he gonna feel that he being manipulated all the time, which
Yeah,
is super
it
fool.
that is kind of that is kind of weird. I didn't really think about that, I guess. I mean, he doesn't believe. What's the guy's name? Like his
Sorry.
caretaker, the guy who is
Yeah, 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 yep.
Burroughs. Was that his name?
Yeah,
No,
something.
that's the butler. Murgatroyd.
Yep.
He has that really weird last name.
That's the same
Murgatroyd.
name.
That's what?
It's the same name.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
He always says.
Yeah, that's the same Dame. That's right. Um, yeah, it's because he doesn't believe Murgatroyd. Oh my God, that I can't believe his name is Murgatroyd. That sounds like the name of a transformer. I am
Murgatroyd.
Murgatroyd. He
Destroy.
doesn't believe him. Like, yeah, you're right. We get to the end of the film and he still thinks that he's just gotten out of this horrible relationship with Eve, who dared to have sex with
Yep.
some other guys before marriage,
Mhm.
and now he's reunited with Jean and everything's going to be wonderful.
Oh
Because her
man.
dad didn't try to steal $32,000 from him.
Yep. Yep. That's
Yeah.
right. And the second thing is the way that Preston Sturges he writes scenes, he actually, I think he more emphasis on using high, um I think what he call is a high joke and low joke. So like he would mix, like characters saying something, like seriously, or something, like snappy, and then having a pratfall at the same time.
Yeah.
And then he utilized this a lot in these films. Like I feel that the extended that Charles, like keep having his suits ruin
Hmm.
is a bit much.
Yeah.
It's
I
going
thought it
on
was
and on and
fine,
on.
kind of in the same way that I thought
Bring
Susan,
up babies. Yep.
yeah, bringing up baby Susan, kind of hammering on the same, or the script in general, just hitting the same notes several times in a
Yep.
row, several scenes in a row was just fine. Uh,
Yep.
you know,
All right.
comedy being derived from repetition is older than these films and will continue to be used, like past,
Yep.
present, future, because it can be
Hmm.
funny. I'm thinking right now of the scene in Azumanga Daioh where uh, Chio and Osaka are throwing the ball to each other and they both keep failing to catch it and they get smacked in the head.
Yeah. Oh
But I
man, that
like
seems.
that scene derives its comedic power from repetition and the
Yep.
timing of the impact of the
That's right.
ball on each of their heads. But I think that scene is like amazing. I love
Yep.
that scene so much. So
Yep.
I don't. It's just as they say, comedy is subjective.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I don't know, man.
Yep.
I thought it was
Yep.
fine that he kept getting his snooze ruined and stuff, but I did start to tire of it towards the end.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Especially because so many of his falls, like it was obvious that he was clumsy when when he was first romancing Eve on the ship, or Jean on the ship, but then
Yep.
the party at his father's manor, and him falling in love with Eve and them getting married and all that was all in the last third of the film, and that's where a majority of the pratfalls happen. So it
Hmm.
just seems to all be squeezed into um, a
Yep.
very small section of the film, or at least the majority of it is.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that it doesn't,
Yeah, that's true.
if it were more evenly spaced out, maybe it wouldn't have the potential to wear on the audience.
Yep. Yep. Alrighty. So I think we do have a clear favorite and a clear least favorite out of these three films.
Yeah, well,
And
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, Bring Up
what?
Baby is probably my least favorite, but I'm kind of talking myself out of my enjoyment of the Lady Eve
Right.
as I talk about it more and think about it more.
All right.
Um, it's an instance. Often when I don't like a film very much, I can identify a lot of ways in which it isn't very well made because they just that's I guess that's just how my brain works. Like I'm looking for reasons to discredit it. I guess. I think the Lady Eve is a pretty well made and even well written movie.
Yeah,
I just happen not to like it very much.
all right. I think out of the three films, this is like the smartest script for me.
Mm-mm.
The way that they keep upholding the information until, like we learn about that later on. So we didn't know that Jean and her father was, like a what they call the cash shop.
Yeah.
before he show you the trick.
Right.
So so yeah, there are some really smart upholding decision right there. But yeah, I kind of I totally prefer this one more than Bring Up Baby for sure.
Well, all I know is that his Girl Friday is the
Is
best. It's the best
Yep,
one. That's great.
yep.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't. Barbara Stanwyck. I didn't. I didn't make that connection with Double Indemnity. Huh.
All right. One more question for you. So the screwball comedy and noir, which one do you prefer now that we watch like some sample of this?
I can't say. I have no idea. I've seen 3 films from each genre. I have absolutely no idea.
Right. You want to see more or
Do I want to? I don't know. Not really. Right
yeah,
now, I'm in the middle of an Avatar: The Last Airbender rewatch, so that's what I really want to see more of.
yeah,
But if I had to pick one of the two to explore more, it would be film noir. I think
right.
uh,
Be
just it appeals to me a little bit more
yeah.
personally.
I think they come out roughly the same times. Like the Lady Eve is 1941 at the same time with the Fawcett Malcolm, uh which begin on that year as well.
Right. Oh,
So
it's interesting now that you bring up the Maltese Falcon. Screwball comedies are like renowned for their fast talking, but
yep.
personally, I found the scripts in all 3 of these films pretty easy to digest. Um,
Compared to the Martin Falcon.
yes, the Maltese Falcon, and part of it was that I really didn't care what was happening,
Yep.
but a lot of the dialogue in the Maltese Falcon is about events that have happened off screen.
Hmm.
In this film, a lot of the fast talking has to do with the relationship between 2 characters,
Yep.
and whether a character is insulting another character or complimenting them or trying to talk in circles around them so they'll just be confused and like do their bidding,
Hmm.
is essentially trying to dominate them conversationally.
Yep.
It's all clear, like not it's the dialogue's fast, yes, but it's the purpose and
Hmm.
to the things to which the dialogue refers are very, they're very clear. They're established
Hmm.
prior to all the fast talking,
Yep.
so you know what it's
Yep.
about. You know where the film is headed. Um, so I had no trouble,
Agree.
like I had no issue whatsoever processing any all the line deliveries in any of these 3 films.
Yep. Agreed.
Kind of like when people say the Tatami Galaxy, like they can't watch it because there's no dub and the subs are too fast.
Hmm.
I'm like, what are you talking? Just read. Just just read the words at the bottom of the
I
screen. They're just
Yeah. Well,
just read them.
I actually kind of see that in the Tatami Galaxy because like the first 3 minutes of the series is like word and word of subtitles.
Yeah,
So so people like don't know about it beforehand could be overwhelmed by that. But
I guess. Yeah,
that's what I love about the Tatami Galaxy, and
it's like a
people
screw.
complain.
Tatami Galaxy is kind of the screwball comedy of anime,
Yep, I see.
a little bit.
Yes, little bit.
It is a comedy after all.
Yep. More of rom-com.
Kind of.
Yep. Alrighty.
All right.
So after this we will take a bit of rest before I think we go back to the next one, and I don't think that we have decided on what topic that we go next for Triple Cross Cinema.
No, we don't know what the theme or the topic of the next episode is going to be, but we do have like 15 or 20 short lists, each
Yep.
with a handful of films
Yep.
that fall underneath those different umbrellas. So we've got plenty of ideas, and
Yep.
once Mario gets back from Cannes, we will dive into them.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So we'll see you in about a month.
Yep. See you soon then.